So this evening's presentation is being sponsored by the Woodside Arts and Culture Committee, a group of like-minded individuals here in the town of Woodside who volunteer their time and their energy to produce a program like this once a month for our community. If you're interested in being involved, the town has lots of volunteer positions available for a variety of interests. We do this, as I mentioned, once a month. We're fortunate that we have able to twist Don's arm to come and present for us. He is the president of the Equestrian Legacy Group, and he's going to give you a wonderful presentation here as we get everyone settled. Now, to start this evening, I wanted to begin with a quote from Emerson. A great place to start. He says, "Riding a horse is not a gentle hobby, to be picked up and laid down like a game of solitaire. It is a grand passion." And I know many of you in the audience share that. It seizes a person whole, and once it has done so, they will have to accept that their life will never be the same. And you know that's true, I can tell. So without further ado, here's Don.
Thanks for that. That's one of my favorite quotes. I love that quote. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Merry Christmas. I guess this is it, huh? So, thank you very much for coming. I'm really excited to talk to you tonight about Equestrian Legacy. I am the president and bottle washer and janitor of Equestrian Legacy. But I have an idea that, you know, in our time, unless we preserve and archive some of these events in our lives and some of the people in our lives, but it's just going to go away. You know, I wasn't raised with a camera in my back pocket, and most of us weren't. So it's really important to me, and I've just sort of been thinking about this for a long time, and this is the result. So I've become a little obsessed with Mrs. Roth. You know, I call Mrs. Roth the First Lady of Woodside, and it's impossible to be around Woodside for very long without benefiting from something she has done. And unless you look, I always, my quote to people is, "Have you seen Lurleen? Because she's everywhere you turn." And I like the name Lurleen. I'm originally from Kentucky and Ohio, and I knew my mother was Donna Lee, my sister's Dory Lou. So Lurleen works, right? But that was sort of, I thought, Lurleen, okay, who is this Lurleen? So she was tenacious. She was kind, generous, highly competitive. Apparently, she was very gracious in defeat and victory. Everybody I talk to has a Mrs. Roth story. Everybody I talk to they want to tell me their story. This is a very loved individual. So I'd like to dedicate this talk to one of my dear friends and mentors, Betsy Lippard. Come on down.
Thank you so much, Don.
Well, Betsy has been loyal and steadfast in her support of the horse community in our town. Betsy calls herself the accidental founder of the Menlo Cherry Horse Show, which she founded in 1970 at the Circus Club. Accidental because the show was a huge success for 50 years, despite the fact that Betsy and her friends didn't know much about horse shows at all. Menlo Cherry Horse Show was the most beautiful show in the West, and what I found out was inspired by a horse show in the 1920s put on by Mrs. Roth. It was called the San Mateo County National Horse Show. And there's some posters around the room, and I'm going to talk about this here. So, I'm sorry. That's me on my 5-gate in Kentucky or Ohio, one of the two, on my Bye-Bye Blackbird. This still, to me, is the ultimate horse. I've tried to reproduce this horse ever since I've been involved with horses. I love big black horses. So there's Mrs. Roth, I'm sorry, and there's my Betsy.
Thank you so much.
So this is a big deal because I didn't know before I started this research that the show is connecting the dots. And that's what's so cool about this research. we're all connected and one thing leads to another, so it's important that we just keep this moving. So the show was a huge success in the 1920s. It was a 10-day show. And apparently the horses, they would come on the railroad cars to Menlo Park and walk them over to the circus club. It was a huge show, and it ended at around just before World War II because of the gas ration. So that went kaput. But it was huge. So anyway, Merry Christmas. Who wants a pony? I want a pony. I wanted a pony since I was 10. It's always my answer. What do you want for Christmas? A pony. But 100 years ago, in December, 100 years ago, 1925, a woman bought her daughter a horse. Mrs. Matson bought Lurleen Matson Roth a horse named Chief of Longview. And this is what put her and the stable on the map. This horse was the most sensational 3-year-old in the land. His first show at Kansas City Royal, he beat all of the competition. I mean, even the old timers. And he was a sensation. She paid $25,000 for this horse, which was outrageous back in those days. In fact, her husband was a little embarrassed that because there was a strike on the docks and he was running the Matson shipping line, but she blamed it on her mom. So, my joy. How did I end up standing here talking to you about a woman who I've never known, never met, and know very little about? I think it's because we were involved with the same kind of horses. This is a 5-gated saddlebred. This photo is what you will see in just about every photo of Mrs. Roth. You will see this beautiful picture of her in the 20s with this horse. This horse is called My Joy. I started doing the research on it. I couldn't find anything about My Joy, and I was finally convinced that, okay, you know, like in the old vintage photographs, you turn it over, and people will write the notes, what date it was, et cetera, et cetera. I thought she probably, this is Chief of Longview, obviously. She turned it over and just wrote, "This is My Joy," right? And somebody must have thought, oh, okay, the horse's name is My Joy. Totally wrong. Don't they look alike? That is not the same horse. So I was back in Lexington, Kentucky at the Kentucky Horse Park, and if you've never been, I really recommend it. It's gorgeous. So I went to Cincinnati for a family reunion in Cincinnati, right across the river, Kentucky. Showed all my horses. But the Saddlebred Museum there is spectacular. If you've never been, you really should go. Anyway, I got to talk, and I went there, and I saw this Sweetheart on Parade. This is hanging in the museum. This is who Mrs. Roth was to these people. So I started talking to the executive director in a very nice southern way, said, "I'm sorry, I kept saying Lurleen Matson Roth, Lurleen Matson Roth." And she kept looking at me like, I have no idea. So I said, "Chief of Longview, Sweetheart on Parade." She said, "Oh, you mean Mrs. Roth." Clutching her pearls, I thought she was going to curtsy or genuflect, one of the two. And I thought, okay, I'm never going to call her Lurleen again. Come back to my office and let's talk. So she gave me a lot of information. So this started the whole ball rolling. Guess what? This is My Joy. This is not Chief of Longview. I was convinced that this was a stallion. And I looked at this photo and I thought, that does not look like a stallion. That looks like a mare, and I love my mares. And sure enough, there was something wrong, and that was it. So she was bred to Chief of Longview, and she had 7 amazing foals over her career. But she was just a horse that Mrs. Roth loved. And this is the iconic, what I love about it is, this was not a famous horse. She was probably in the B team. You know, she was always 3rd or 4th. You go back into the records. So that I felt a connection with Mrs. Roth. This is Sweetheart on Parade, which was one of her gorgeous 5-gated saddlebred mares. And there's me, and this is my connection. So I love 1920s. Anything 1920s, I mean it. All the houses built in the 20s around here that they want to tear down. I can't take it. But, so the saddlebreds and the 20s architecture, you know, Mrs. Roth's husband actually built the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, one of my favorite hotels in the world. So this 20s architecture is just one of my favorites. I want to talk to you a little bit about the American saddlebred, in case you don't know what that is. So this is Cincinnati. This is Ulysses S. Grant's saddlebred. Now, he was a cross between a thoroughbred and a Narragansett pacer. But this is how the saddlebred was formed. They call it the horse that America made. These horses were not only beautiful, but they were unflappable. And if you were lucky, they had that shuffling gait that made them so comfortable to ride. So they were really prized during the Civil War because you could ride all day long. Or you could be, Scarlett O'Hara, Tara, and ride all day long through the plantation and not get sore because it was just super smooth. So you have 5 gaits. You have walk, trot, canter, and then slow gait, which is a very slow, you could literally carry a martini. And then rack is a really fast slow gait. Really, it's judged on speed and brilliance. So this was Cincinnati, and this is Traveler, Robert E. Lee's saddlebred. Traveler, again, thoroughbred and a Narragansett pacer cross. The fever. There's a line in the fever. It's up there. Everybody got the fever. That's something you all know.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever.
So Becky Witter wrote about it. Horse fever is a physical, emotional, and spiritual condition that strikes people of all ages, affecting individuals to varying degrees throughout their lives. While some are totally immune and never give horses a second look, most people, like those in the preceding scenario, are born with a low-grade fever that appears as a deep appreciation for the grace, beauty, and freedom of horses. This mild infection, however, can ignite into serious horse fever at any time, compelling people to take riding lessons, attend rodeos, horse shows, or race meets, or even in severe cases, to buy a horse. And that's my favorite part. Isn't such a new thing? There. So the Matson family had serious horse fever. Now I'm not going to talk. I could talk. I went down a rabbit hole with this research because Captain Matson, the sugar industry, the tourism, the ships, you name it. And my my graphic artist, she's going to kill me when she sees this tape. She said to me when she was putting this together for me, she said, "That is so cool. She's named after a boat." That says it all. So I'm not going to talk about how successful this man was or this family was and how rich they were. But I want to talk about his horse fever. Captain Matson had serious horse fever. He was an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, community-minded, millionaire many times over, but above all, he was a horseman. He was well known for his love of horses. He loved his trotters and his amateur races. The captain, as told by his daughter, he was a beautiful rider, and he loved his horses. So the horse fever was passed on to his daughter in a very good way. The father and daughter shared this common, strong bond around horses, and everything equine. They were thick as thieves. At one point, Mrs. Matson, put her foot down and would not allow Lorraine to go to any more horse auctions with her father, as she would always encourage him to buy another horse. Well, my mom said now, which would then have to be hidden by one of his friends in one of the stables in the East Bay. So Lorraine and her father were extremely close. In fact, Mrs. Roth would often say that he treated her more like a son and a best friend, a confidant. In business, if somebody wanted to know what Captain Matson was going to do, they'd call Lorraine and say, what's he going to do? So they were that thick. So Miss Matson, it's all about horses. I found out about this wonderful St. Francis Riding Club, which I knew nothing about. Maybe some of you know about that. Right off of Golden Gate Park. This is huge back in the 20s, and this is probably where Lurleen Matson learned how to ride. She always kept a couple of horses, and her dad always kept a couple of horses. But they had the stables out in the west part of the city because it was fresh air. And this riding club was owned by a few doctors that got together and bought it, and they were promoting health benefits of riding, you know? She was also very civic-minded, always. This is a photo I found online of her doing civic work. And guess what they would call these little horseshoes that they put on? The circus. The dots are all connecting. Okay, so becoming Mrs. Roth. This was a very big part of her life. She was very, very close to her father, and her father was very jealous, did not want her to get married, certainly not at 18, when she met William Roth on one of the trips to Hawaii, just like Mr. Matson met his wife. You know, they would go to Hawaii, this was before air travel, take 2 weeks to get there. And then they'd stay for a month or two because it was such a long trip. She would take a couple of horses. She fell instantly and madly, and stubbornly, and crazy in love with William Roth at first sight. That's how she puts it. And that was it. Mrs. Roth was famous in all of her, she would always say, that's it, that was it, that was it. And they were quickly shot down by the father. He was not going to have her marry somebody 10 years her senior, and especially somebody with money. He had prospects, but no money. So this began a 2-year period of real pain for her. And she had to stand up. She had to decide at that point, am I going to be Lurleen Matson, or am I going to be Mrs. Roth? She had 2 bills she had to contend with. You know, I think that it must have been very, very difficult for him. You know, you think of this couple and you think, okay, here's this heiress, one of the richest young ladies in the United States. And you think, okay, well, this guy is obviously just marrying her, you know, and it's going to be, you know, maybe it was really difficult for him. He must have been, they were in the newspaper all the time. All the time. Every step they took, this before Facebook, they were, every step they took, every step she took, it was talked about. So when she was sick at heart and lost weight, and I think that she probably did a little Camille thing, you know, but her mom took her to Europe so she could recover. And I think the father finally got the point. He thought, this is not going away. So they ended up getting married, and after a lot of brouhaha, Mr. Roth moved to San Francisco. Now, he was born in Honolulu, but he was educated at Stanford. And he was a sugar broker and a banker, but he wasn't of this family. He sold a business, and he started as a lowly secretary with Matson. And so I call it from wrath, father's wrath, to Roth. So now she is called Mrs. Roth, and I will always refer to her as Mrs. Roth. In fact, nobody calls her Lurleen, but she has always been Mrs. Roth. Okay, so Mrs. Captain passes away. They've got a couple of kids, and they bought a place in Woodside, I think in 1918 or 1919, and set up stables. You see the beautiful round barn that it's known for, and Why Worry Farm, right down the road here, gorgeous, 75 acres. I cracked up, Mrs. Roth in one of her interviews said, it was only 75 acres. Okay. Right? But they really didn't hit national prominence until this happened. Chief of Longview. It was a sensation. And she went full tilt, as somebody with horsekeeper does, and he has a probably a little bit more money in her bank account now that Mom and Dad passed away. So did Dad. And I think the best way to describe it is probably just talk to you about, I had this recording done by an actor, a friend of mine, who, his retirement ceremony in Kansas City.
One of the most dramatic events in horse show history. We
Why
are
Worry
bidding
Farm.
farewell to one of Missouri's greatest sons.
He was in all the magazines.
Here in his own hometown, where he started his career in this arena.
Why Worry
He
Farm.
is ending tonight the most spectacular show life of any horse of our time. Born at Longview Farm, just a few miles from this city, a breeding establishment owned by Mr. R.A. Long, one of the country's oldest supporters of the horse industry, and one who has produced some of the most famous horses of the last century, to him goes the honor of having produced one who is known as the greatest horse of all time, Chief of Longview. This outstanding stallion just 7 years ago electrified an audience, many of whom are here tonight, by not only winning the junior stake as a 3-year-old, but by breaking all records for his age by winning the final grand championship. One of his many records, unsurpassed. Immediately after that show, he was purchased by the late Mrs. William Manson, a keen judge and a real lover of horses, for her daughter, Mrs. William P. Roth. Leaving for his new home in California, he began a career which took him from the shores of the Pacific to those of the Atlantic. Los Angeles, San Francisco, St. Louis, Louisville, Chicago, Devon, Boston, and New York are but a few of the cities in which he swept all before him. In our bordering state of Kentucky, he established an unbeaten record by winning the Stallion Championship for 4 consecutive years and the World's Grand Championship twice. A fitting tribute from our friendly rivals came last month when Kentucky honored our Missouri son with a public demand for a farewell exhibition. That he is the greatest horse of all time is an admitted fact. Apart from his ability as a performer, no horse ever entered the ring with such presence or such striking individuality. His personality, his unbounded courage, and his masculine arrogance made him an outstanding figure in the finest company. Although only 10 years old and physically fit for many more contests, he is being retired to the stud, having won all the laurels possible. His early retirement is just what might be expected from his owner, Mrs. Roth, whose genuine sportsmanship and real honest love of her horses has been a striking example to the horse show world. It is doubtful whether any stallion has ever sired such a uniformly fine lot of colts and fillies. His youngsters have been sensational wherever they have been shown. It was a historic occasion last Monday night when Chief witnessed his own daughter, Crimson Rambler, win the same junior stake which he had won in his youth at this show. This again was a repetition of what happened in Kentucky a month ago and established another of Chief of Longview's remarkable achievements. Too much credit for Chief's victories cannot be given to Lonnie Hayden, another son of Missouri who trained him and rode him throughout his glorious career. They have always been inseparable and always will be. When Chief left for California, nothing would satisfy him until Lonnie joined him. We shall now bid farewell to the great parader. He ends his career among his own home folks, those whom he loves and those who love him. Chief, though you may live in California, for us, you're a son of old Mizzou.
So he was quite a horse, and he's buried right down the road. He is buried at Why Worry Farm. Lonnie Hayden, I just want to say a couple of things about this trainer. He raised this foal from a baby, and he was the most incredible trainer, apparently. This horse was a handful. So when Mrs. Roth, he showed him 5 gated, the speed class, and then Mrs. Roth took the lines and drove him. And he would sometimes want to run away. He'd get so jacked up that he would want to run away. Well, Lonnie Hayden would stand on the rail and holler down to the other end, "Whoa, this horse has stopped dead in his tracks." And in the 5 gaiety classes where they line up at the end, what they do oftentimes in the championship is they take the saddle off. And, you know, you'll see them in the shows doing this, you know, getting the horses to stretch out and pose. But this horse was known as the Great Poser. He was meant for Facebook and Instagram. Apparently, what Lonnie did was drop the reins and walked away. 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, he just stood there. And the horse just stood there like he was at the Met Gala. So Lonnie was a great trainer. When Mrs. Roth bought Chief of Longview and brought him to California, he didn't do well at all. He was homesick. He was heartsick with this guy who raised him from being a foal. Lonnie was the same way. So she talked him into coming to the West Coast and taking over the business. And which leads us to the next horse, Sweetheart on Parade. This horse is amazing. She's a mare, 5-gaited. And she was coming right behind Chief of Longview. So imagine having 2 world champions at the same show and deciding which one to, I don't want to put them against each other, right? So that's why it was easy for her to retire Chief and to bring Sweetheart on Parade. So as you see, this is maybe this is the Menlo Circus Club, I don't know. This is Mrs. Roth driving. Interesting mare. This mare was a saddlebred crossed with a standard bred. You know standardbreds, they're born to race, basically the trotters. That's why she had such freakish speed. They used to call her the Gray Ghost. She was faster than lightning and a world champion. Now, they didn't know what her breeding was until she was retired, and they wanted to, everybody was sifting through the archives thinking, oh, they're going to breed her to Chief and to this, and she's going to be a great brood mare. That's by Loli, by the way. And they couldn't register her because she's not full saddlebred. This is Roth taking care. Okay. So here's the San Mateo National Horse Show. This was mind-blowing to me. This is a very busy family. In the 1920s and 30s was a time of great expansion for Madison's shipping lines. Mr. Roth was named president of the tourist lines, and he grew more and more, and eventually the company got into hotel construction. His claim to fame was building the Royal Hawaiian on Waikiki Beach, amongst others. So he was quite a guy, Mr. Roth. Mrs. Roth was busy breeding and showing horses. She was instrumental in creating the San Mateo National Horse Show at the Circus Club. It was a huge success. It was a 10-day show with over 400 horses competing. You have to remember that horse shows at the time were very social and very glamorous affairs, just like Menlo. A horse show really was a show. They'd have all different types of Western horses. Mrs. Roth had Western horses. These horses, the gaited horses. And in fact, in 1933, Mrs. Roth, after the Chief was retired, showed all of the Chief of Longview in an exhibition and 22 of his foals, all at the show. Can you imagine the circus club pulling this off? It's amazing. Amazing to me. So I'm talking a lot about the breeding because Mrs. Roth then, this is part of the San Mateo County National Horse Show, which ended right before World War II. But the IRS came a knocking in 1936 and tried to tell Mrs. Roth that she was just a rich kid with a hobby, and she was not having it. So these are the operations. I mean, you can see just what, you know, her attorney, Herm Flager, well-known Woodside man, said, you're going to lose this case. You know, it wasn't that much money, but it was the principle of the thing. And she was staunch. So she fought it, and he was very, very surprised when she won. So she was very proud of that. And look at this. Production, 50 colts born, 7 brood mares. I mean, Sky, you name it. She was in a real business. And she said, I would never have done this if I didn't intend to turn a profit at some point. You know, in the breeding business, brood mares take a while, foals take a while to grow. So anyway, she won. It was one of the crowning victories in her life, I think. Okay, let's talk about Filoli, one of my favorite places. It's a big accident. You know, if it wasn't for Mr. Roth, Filoli would probably not exist today. They were at a party, in 1937, and someone said, you know, Filoli just came on the market. Why don't you buy it? Your daughters are going to make their debut in 2 years. Mrs. Roth said, no. We're very happy at Why Worry. Why do we need that? I don't want to do it. But I think because this man was a 1920s hotel builder and loved that style, he said, let's just go and see it. Well, within a week, it was theirs. And I know horse people. So she didn't want to move, but this is Kentucky, obviously. That's a Kentucky horse barn, which the chapels look like barns, and the barns look like chapels. And as they should. But I'm thinking that she saw this scene. He saw the Royal Hawaiian. She saw, hey, wait a minute. She saw pastures. And she was all in it. So, lo and behold, at the end of it, they had 40 mares and foals at Filoli and 60 at Whitebury Farm. They were running both at the same time. So they were a busy family, to say the least. And when you see Mrs. Roth's resume at the end of this, you're going to think, how in the world did she do this? It was so hard for me to do this speech because I had to put on the Post-it note on my computer, it's about the horses, dummy. Because you get swept away into this building of hotels and ships. Not only was she actively involved with many national horse organizations, the Cow Palace show, she's in every Cow Palace magazine that you can go to. In fact, she was still showing hackney ponies in her 80s. I found in 1969, the Cow Palace magazine, there she is, showing her hackney ponies. I mean, she was remarkable. Her son, she was inducted into the American Saddlebred Hall of Fame, by the way, in 1968 for her breeding in her bloodlines. Her son, William Matson Roth, and she actually saved Ghirardelli Square from demolition in the 60s. A group of developers wanted to buy it and put up condominiums, and they bought it and saved it, and they were the first adaptive reuse model that they've used around the world. These seaport, these brick buildings being converted into cafes and galleries, et cetera, et cetera. That was Mrs. Roth, and that was Mr. Roth. Mr. Roth passed away in 1963. Her son ran for governor unsuccessfully. Lurleen Roth was a staunch Republican, and her son was a staunch liberal, and they didn't discuss politics, but when he ran for governor, she switched parties to Democrat, and when he lost, she undemocrated herself. I love that. So she had her own mind, you know. She was just the greatest gift to the community and to our country, and to donate to Filoli, to the National Trust in 1975. It's probably one of the greatest things she did. She passed away peacefully at age 95 in Hillsborough, California. She moved from Filoli after he died in 63. She moved in 75. It was just too lonely and too big. It's one of the smaller house, which is when she donated to the National Trust. So to go to Filoli now is a little sad for me because I wrote an article called Walking with Lurleen. And I do this to this day. It's really fun. If you're a member of Filoli, try this. I pass the house. Don't even go into the house. Don't even go into the gardens. Take a right and go back to where they're putting all these big wooden structures, big wooden animals. It's a beautiful walk, but can you imagine riding your horse or driving your carriage back through here? It's absolutely gorgeous. This is Why Worry Farm today. Why Worry Farm was sold a couple of years ago by a friend of mine, Sheena Hurley. She's been very instrumental, and she's a big fan. And by the way, I'm not an expert. None of us are, but we are fans. We're in the fan club. So this is Red's Barn. Red was a teaser stallion. People confuse it with the Red Barn at Stanford, but Red was the name of a little obnoxious pony that would get the ladies all excited for the big daddy to come around. Teaser stallion. That's the Why Worry Farm, the very famous circular barn. Again, it has all these wonderful murals. Betsy, you'll be happy to know when I went to see this, before it traded hands, there was a Menlo Cherry Horse Show chair in the barn. So they went to the show. So it's gorgeous back there. I really recommend walking way back there. So I imagine Mrs. Roth and I walking through, you know how horse people never stop talking about their horses. I just imagine this long, beautiful walk past the horses and the foal, the mares in the foals coming up to you, eating carrots, and it's just very, very peaceful. I really recommend it. I would love to see something horsey built back there. So I feel like they're still here in spirit. So Lurleen Berenice Roth is a national treasure, and the world is a better place because of her. She was a remarkable woman, and I call her the First Lady of Woodside. But look at this resume. Unbelievable. She did all of this while raising 3 children, and granted she did not work, but she was not sitting around and just enjoying her father's great wealth. One of my fun, and I'd love to hear stories from you all, one of my best examples of Mrs. Roth was, if you go to Olson Nolte, next time you're at Olson Nolte's salary, and I'd like to talk about, everybody's got a Mrs. Roth story. So the owner, Al, told me about being picked up by Mrs. Roth's chauffeur with saddles and tack and stuff, and taking him to Filola, and how nervous he was to meet her. It was kind of like meeting the Queen. And how nice she was, how gracious she was. The last time I was in there, a few months ago, I walked in and Al knew I was doing this research. He said, "Come here, I want to show you something." So we go into the back, and I recommend doing this. He shows me this odd-looking Western saddle in the back. It's a Western saddle. It looked like a hybrid between a Western saddle and an English saddle. And there's a name for it. I forget the name. It was Mrs. Roth's. She rode Western. I found somewhere else where she had a racehorse. It was in a, not a racehorse, but a steeplechase horse. I mean, this woman was an amazing horsewoman. And to go to Filola now and to see nothing there, or very, very little about that, it's heartbreaking to me. So that kind of got me on a roll with Mrs. Roth. And I'm going to keep on playing the drum. And I hope you've enjoyed the talk. I really enjoyed doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Don, very much. Now, we've heard this amazing story about an amazing woman, Mrs. Roth, who was at Fioli. And if you're not aware of it, Fioli is the motto of the original owner, and it means fight, love, life. And Mrs. Roth epitomizes that motto. So anytime you go to Fioli, don't forget the person who really brought Fioli to life by giving it to the rest of it. And one last thing, you know, because we've been talking a lot about four-legged creatures, horses, you know that horses are smarter than people.
Yes.
You never heard of a horse going broke betting on people. That was Will Rogers. Thank you very much. Now next month, bring your singing voices, because we have Nigel and Clyde who are going to do Beatles songs, and it's going to be a sing-along. Perfect for the holidays. So please, come again. Thank you. Drive carefully.